main thread of the film is this incredible group of friends that live in London and have been friends for eons and ages. My character Jax is sort of the glue that binds them together and the rock of the friendships.
Brittany's character Jax, who's an American, not technically an American, but who comes over to works at Vogue. And you could say that the world of the film is her group. She's the center of it, and then there's her group of friends.
Yeah, I think after she does 10,000 pounds, after she says it the second time,
go in.
I think you guys should go in.
Yeah.
Even on the applause. Do you know what I mean?
I agree.
You know, go in. So she says, I was kidding.
Basically, it seems that everyone is looking for love, and there's a sort of small mistaken love triangle going on between myself, Brittany, and Santiago's character. In that I'm looking for a boyfriend. She's trying to set me up with Santiago. Santiago's falling in love with her. She, unbeknown to herself, is falling in love with him, and eventually it sort of, you know, pans out.
It's a collection of stories centred around a group of friends in their quest to find romance or love or companionship.
Well, it's called Love and Other Disasters, so of course it is a treatment about falling in love, you know, and it's mainly aimed at like young people trying to find that special someone somewhere in their 20s or 30s when they've probably been through a few relationships that have taught them what love could be, but it's not really worked out in the long run. And they're trying to basically find the right person for them.
The movie is a romantic comedy that follows them through their adventures, and the plot line is difficult to pin down because there's so many different ones that flow throughout and come together geniusly at the end, but it's also a surprise, so I don't want to give that away.
I think it's interesting that people always like that because you with Jack's group of friends, you kind of, there's a lot of different people that, you know, you can identify with. I suppose everyone's got kind of friends like that, or in a certain way you relate to kind of why they're all together, you know, and they get along.
There are romantic elements to it, but it's slightly alternative take on it, which is what I like. You're more in the minds, in the heads of the characters.
Love and Other Disasters definitely is a perfect example, project-wise for me, creatively, life-wise, in every sort of way, as far as something just. It was sweet synchronicity. My manager happened to be taking a stroll through her neighborhood and ran into an old friend, Alec, in a Starbucks, and he had written a script 9 years before and just moved back to the States from London, and he was really distraught, and she said, "What's wrong?" And he said, I met all these people, but I haven't found the girl that was in my mind when I wrote it. He had this certain, very particular imagination for what his Jax was, and she said, well, what's the girl? And he described the character, and she said, I have the girl.
Okay, we gotta shoot. Thank you. Just hear that? Yes. Whoa.
I was living in London and having a great time living in London, and I started feeling like there was a script about kind of my experiences or some of the people in the world that I kind of discovered in London. The script kind of began in my head probably around 7, 8 years ago.
It's impossible to imagine anyone else directing this other than Alec. It's so personal to him. He knows all those characters so innately. You know, he was so precise about who was right and who wasn't right for those characters. I think it would have been really difficult for anyone else to have directed it.
I have to be really grateful because it was a bit of a fairy tale in terms of how quickly it happened once I finished the script and cast the person I wanted as Jax. And working with EuropaCorp was fantastic, you know, because they really let me make the movie I want to make. Having Luc Besson and David Fincher as kind of the guardian angels.
You know, he did let me in on a secret that he has lived in London for many years, and you know, he said that there are elements of the characters based on people he knew, which is great. You know, that's when you get a truthfulness to them, which is what you want, I think. And characters you recognise as well. You sort of go, he gets them down very well, very accurately.
we'll do stills, yes. Sorry. We can do a quick still, please, everybody. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Alec had asked me to come to London in advance to live here so that I felt as if I was definitely a citizen and I knew what it felt like to cross the road and I wasn't looking the wrong way and doing the opposite of how I do things at home. And I really, that pre-filming time was so very important.
She's probably one in a million, you know, and she would attract any young man, I think, who came across her, but she's quite a lot to handle, in as much she's full of life, beans, and she's very sexy, very savvy, very into her fashion, you know. She's got a great sense of humour, she's very generous and very sort of open and bubbly, and takes a lot of people into her coterie.
Jax is this sort of giddy caretaker, basically, who spends far too much time looking out for her friends and looking after her friends and not really looking after herself, who's this sort of character who works for Vogue and lives up in many ways to that sort of, you know, fashion world, but also has a real enormous heart of gold.
The thing that Brittany brings to the role of Jax, or that Jax has, which Brittany get inside of, is that quality of a generosity of spirit. You know, she is like this bundle of energy. She is that kind of sun that when she walks into the room, she's just, you know, there's a bit of, you know, at times even energy overflow, which Jax has.
And Brittany is, you know, she's just this coiled spring of a life force, Brittany. You know, she comes into a room and she really comes into a room. You know, there's a different energy when she comes in. There's a different energy when she leaves. You know you've got Brittany in the room. And that's very much what Alec felt about Jax. She's not a presence that you can ignore.
Do you know how to tango?
Yeah. Why?
Because everyone knows you can't be drunk in tango, so if I get tango, then I'm not drunk and I get to show you pictures to Finley.
I think that's why Brittany's perfect as well for this, because she's such a colourful person herself, and she brings, you know, so much joy, and, you know, it pushes up. It's got everyone up because everyone's got to match her energy, you know, and Jax does that in the film, and the fact that we've all got to match her energy brings the whole thing to a different level, you know. Yeah, she's really good. She's great.
When we started, I said, oh, you know, this is my first film, and, you know, this is her 41st film. So she's like a complete veteran of filmmaking. And it shows, you know what I mean, her working with her professionalism shows. She's fantastic, she's great, you know, she's made everything really, really easygoing.
And it's the last shot. For me.